Hello and welcome back to another week in new genre books. Thanks for stopping by. We're always glad to have you here. My name is Amelia, and from Locus magazine, I'm about to tell you the top new science fiction, fantasy, and horror books being published the week of May 30th, 2023. Please like and subscribe. That is a big part of keeping this booktube going, and all you have to do is click the subscribe button. I've got links for timing if you want to skip to your favorite category, be it science fiction, fantasy, or horror. You know, the fun stuff. Starting with science fiction books this week, we have one science fiction title being published. Sometimes this happens toward the end of the month because of how publishers run their calendars. From the up-and-coming Jiang, we saw Imai, out from Shortwave in trade paperback and ebook. This is a science fiction novelette. If you have the opportunity to give up humanity for efficiency, mechanical invincibility, and to surpass human limitations, would you? I is a cyborg under the guise of an AI writing program who struggles to keep up with the never-blinking city of Emmett as it threatens to leave all those like her behind. John Wiswell, author of the Nebula-winning Open House on Haunted Hill, said, Jiang is one of the most exciting new voices in the field, and Imai shows exactly why. This is an unsettling vision of the future of creativity. If it doesn't bother you, then you need to check where your imagination went. Next up, horror, we have one title in horror this week. From Dan McDowell, we saw When She Comes Knocking, out from Black Rose Writing in trade paperback and ebook. This is a horror novel, a psychological thriller that tells the story of Ben Decker, a burned-out pharmaceutical sales rep. Is there any other kind? Struggling with the scars of the past, he hopes moving to a new house will provide a fresh start, but readers, we know better, don't we? A fresh start never solves the problems. Next up, fantasy, we have 10 titles this week. From the Hugo, Nebula, and Locus Award winner Martha Wells, author of the Murderbot series, we saw Witch King, out from Tor.com in hardcover and ebook. This is a fantasy novel, the author's first new fantasy in over a decade. After being murdered, his consciousness dormant and unaware of the passing of time while confined in an elaborate water trap, Kai wakes to find a lesser mage attempting to harness Kai's magic. Hugo winner and MacArthur Genius recipient N.K. Jemisin described it like this: a wildly original and complex fantasy exploring how revolutions are won through trust and destroyed through selfishness. Wells excels at brooding, powerful, inhuman protagonists who just need a little kindness to be their badass best. From one of our finest UK writers, Liz Williams, we saw Salt on the Midnight Fire, out from Newcon Press UK in ebook. This is a contemporary fantasy novel, fourth in a quartet. The author, on an interview with the Milford SF writers, said, "This one's more heavily witchcraft-oriented and on some of the folklore of the coast. It's a summer book. I've been trying to write these novels seasonally so that they are written when they are set." In Salt on the Midnight Fire, new dangers arise as the focus shifts from rural Somerset to the rugged coastline of Cornwall. The sisters and their friends, Ace, Vere, Dark, Davy, Nick, Laura, and Kit Coral, are embroiled in a deadly struggle between the land and sea, the wild hunt, and the wreckers and pirates, a conflict that reaches down through the ages. From David Ferraro, we saw The Alchemy of Moonlight, out from Page Street in hardcover, ebook, and audio. In this young adult queer gothic romance, a young marquis caught between freedom and passion, honor and love, will have to unravel a centuries-old curse. When the young queer Marquis Emile is told he must marry to produce an heir or be disowned, he runs away disguised as a servant until he can come of age and reclaim his inheritance. From Susan diRende, we saw Knife Witch, out from Aqueduct Press in trade paperback and ebook. This is a fantasy novel expanded from the eponymous story. A kitchen maid kidnapped by pirates discovers she's a witch and is followed by an amorous, telepathic kraken, which is just one of those unique phrases in the English language that I at least have not come across before and must therefore say again. Amorous, telepathic kraken. Nailed it, no notes. Nancy Jane Moore, author of For the Good of the Realm, said, "Anyone who thinks feminism, or for that matter fantasy, can't be funny needs to read Susan diRende." From PC Cast, we saw Earth Called, out from Wednesday Books in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult fantasy novel. Mari, Nick, their newly formed pack, and the Wind Riders are in danger as the god of death and his terrifying army march ever closer in death's quest to rule the Wind Rider plains and to kill or enslave anyone who stands in their way. The pack and the Wind Riders must find a way to stop the god of death before he poisons their world and all is lost. From Meg Schaefer, we saw The Wishing Game out from Ballantine in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel. A reclusive children's author resurfaces after years with a new book and a competition for the rights to the manuscript. V.E. Schwab, #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, said The Wishing Game is clever and hopeful, a love letter to reading and the power that childhood stories have over us long after we've grown up. From Rita Chang-Eppig, we saw Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea, out from Bloomsbury, USA in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a historical fantasy adventure novel. When Shek Young sees a Portuguese sailor slay her husband, a feared pirate, she knows she must act swiftly or die. Instead of mourning, Shek Young launches a new plan, immediately marrying her husband's second-in-command and agreeing to bear him a son and heir in order to retain power over her half of the fleet. #goals. From Kika Hatzopoulou, we saw Threads That Bind out from Razorbill in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult fantasy/noir mystery novel based on Greek and Roman myths. In a world where the children of the gods inherit their powers, a descendant of the Greek fates must solve a series of impossible murders. Descendants of the fates are always born in threes, one to weave, one to draw, and one to cut the threads that connect people to the things they love and to life itself. The Aura sisters are no exception. Io, the youngest, uses her fate-born abilities as a private investigator in the half-sunken city of Alante. Her latest job leads her to a horrific discovery. Someone is abducting women, maiming their life threads, and setting the resulting wraiths loose in the city to kill. But wait, there's more Greek and Roman myths to come. From Luna McNamara, we saw Psyche and Eros out from Morrow in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel, a feminist retelling of the Greek myth. A prophecy claims that Psyche, princess of Mycenae, will defeat a monster feared even by the gods. Rebelling against her society's expectation for women, Psyche spends her youth mastering blade and bow, preparing to meet her destiny. From Rachael Moorthy, we saw River Meets the Sea out from House of Anansi in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy following the parallel stories of two young men in Canada, one in 1940s Vancouver and the other in 1970s Nanaimo. Lee Henderson, author of The Road Narrows As You Go, said this: Rachael Moorthy's writing is driven by an innate creative curiosity, interrogating history, identity, and the human condition, and always rooted in deep artistic and moral convictions. Lastly, collections, we have 4 titles this week. From the very talented Tom Remy, we saw Under the Holywood Sign, the collected stories of Tom Remy out from Subterranean Press in hardcover. Gathered here for the first time is all of Remy's professional short fiction, including 2 previously uncollected pieces, the story M is for the Millions, and the screenplay Sting, as well as a previously unpublished novella. From the review in Locus by Paul DiFilippo, Twyla is told from the POV of a no-nonsense old-maid elementary school teacher who might have stepped out of a Zena Henderson story, and starts out overall like one of her tales of the people. But as soon as death and sexual depredations occur and the occult rears its head, all resemblance to Henderson is out the window. San Diego Lightfoot Sue is probably Remy's most well-known tale, having won a Nebula and been much reprinted. It's a Sturgeon-esque, Delaney-esque account of a teenage runaway from the sticks set down among urban sophisticates and misfits. From Nat Bookbinder, we saw Inkweed / The Mellification out from Pink Narcissus Press in trade paperback. This is a collection of 2 novellas, both revised. Futuristic Inkweed, about a laborer who gets involved in selling a dangerous new drug in an underground city, and The Mellification, about a young transgender vampire who just doesn't fit in with his catacomb-living vampire brethren. According to the author's website, while writing The Mellification, I had a lot of ideas and images percolating for a new project. Honeybees and bats, sprawling green cemeteries, a pearl-handled knife. From Lambda Literary Award and Shirley Jackson Award nominated Robert Levy, we saw No One Dies from Love, out from Word Horde in trade paperback and ebook. This is a collection of 12 dark stories, one new, with a note by the author on the theme of loss and longing that runs through them. Also an introduction by Paul Tremblay. From Theodore McCombs, we saw Uranians, out from Astra House in hardcover and ebook. This is a collection of 5 speculative stories about being queer in different worlds. The wonderful Karen Joy Fowler, author of We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves, said, "If you like stories that linger, that turn over again and again in your mind after you've read them, then this is your book. Such a delight to have discovered this innovative and brilliant new voice. Such a delight to urge you to the same discovery." That wraps up this week. Thanks for spending some time with us. At Locus, we want to tell you everything relevant that's happening in the science fiction, fantasy, horror publishing space. We appreciate your eyes and ears and your likes and subscribes. Please leave us a like on your way out and subscribe and turn notifications on so you know about this video when it goes up every week. The magazine and YouTube channel are a labor of love. We are at Locus Mag or at Locus Magazine on most platforms. You can read more about the science fiction, fantasy, and horror field over at www.locusmag.com or support us on our Patreon. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Come back and see us again soon, and we'll be here next week with more new books.